I'm John Steinberg, Vice President of Business Development and co-founder at EcoFactor, and I'll be talking with you today about the integrated demand-side management program that EcoFactor has run in connection with NVE Energy in the Las Vegas area. NVE Energy is a large utility covering essentially all of Nevada that has people in it, serving roughly 1.2 million electric customers. NVE Energy has run demand response programs for more than a decade. It's a major part of their demand-side management portfolio. And NVE Energy approached us, I believe it's 4 years ago now, having already spent a fair amount of time thinking about their vision of what a leading-edge demand-side management program would do. And they thought about things like using data that came off of communicating thermostats as a way of doing a better job of optimizing not just demand response, but making things better for consumers, and using all the data that theoretically would be available from communicating thermostats as a way of making the grid more reliable, saving people energy, and delivering lots of other benefits as well. And they were very interested in what EcoFactor had to say, because that, in fact, is how EcoFactor initially decided to go after the demand-side management business. And what EcoFactor does is connect to communicating thermostats and treat those thermostats primarily not as remote controllable switches, but as sensors that are capable of sending lots of really interesting data about the temperature in a home, about the way the occupants of the home interact with the thermostat. We process that data in the cloud, combine that data with information that we get from weather services online about the weather conditions that an individual home is experiencing, and then using all of that information not just to present interesting data to a customer, but to actually optimize the settings of the thermostat, optimize set points in order to take into account the unique thermal characteristics of each home, of each HVAC system, and the preferences of each individual customer in order to deliver individualized benefits for those consumers. And EcoFactor, when we first started talking with Nevada Energy, as I said several years ago, we told Nevada Energy that we believe that our solution would enable them to deliver double-digit energy savings on the HVAC usage for their customers, deliver better demand response than they had gotten previously with any other system. And because of the way it optimizes around the individual preferences of each individual customer, would deliver good and improved customer satisfaction for all their customers. And so based on sort of those initial promises, NVE agreed to do a small pilot in 2010. That pilot extended to cover not just demand response, but also energy efficiency in 2011, and expanded in size. And then at that point, NVE agreed with us to go into a commercial scale deployment. As of the end of 2012, that commercial program was up to over 4,000 homes and over 13 megawatts by the end of 2013, which was really the first summer when we were delivering demand response at scale. It was over 10,000 homes and over 30 megawatts. And one of the things that I think is important to note for thinking about this later is that we didn't run 5 or even 10 demand response events. There were 28 different DR days in that first summer, including a stretch of 8 days in a row, which would be very challenging in terms of customer satisfaction with an ordinary demand response program. It continued to expand over 2014, and it's now north of 85 megawatts and continuing to grow. There were, again, 28 demand response event days but even more events, and I'll talk more about what I mean by that in just a few minutes here. Nevada Energy promoted this to its customers. It was featured prominently on the NVE website, and essentially the value proposition for a consumer was that NVE Energy would, in exchange for participation in the demand response program, give consumers a free communicating thermostat that they can access over the web using their mobile devices, give them free installation, give them the optimization service, which, as again I'll talk about a little bit later, has proven to save the consumer on average about $100 a year in reduced HVAC spend. Give them all those things for free in exchange for their participation in this demand response program, which, as it turns out, is much easier on consumers than traditional demand response, because one of the ways in which EcoFactor uses all of the things it learns from the unique characteristics of each home is to do individually optimized pre-cooling on a house-by-house, day-by-day basis, which both increases yield and very much decreases the discomfort that would be experienced by someone inside the home. Again, part of what is the benefit for consumers is that there's a very simple, intuitive, mobile-centric user experience. But I think most important about that is that this is not behavior modification. This is automated. And so although there's this very nice user interface for consumers, EcoFactor works to save them energy, to reduce the discomfort associated with demand response, even if the consumer never logs in, even if the consumer never does anything other than push the thermostat, push the up button on the thermostat if they're cold and the down button if they're warm. So the user interface includes a very simple, intuitive way of setting schedules. It includes very simple ways for consumers to see their savings. It delivers all these benefits for people, which have been recognized by the reviews that the M-powered application has received on the web. If I forgot to mention earlier, Nevada Energy calls this program M-powered. And so all of those things are benefits from the consumer side, but of course Nevada Energy is very keen to prove to its Public Utilities Commission that it delivers the benefits that Nevada Energy is concerned with for the grid, which are primarily about demand response, but they're also incented to deliver energy efficiency benefits. And so Nevada Energy engaged ADM associates to do an exhaustively detailed M&V report, not just for what the M-Power program did, but for all of their demand response programs. They have a large portfolio of DR. As I said earlier, they've been doing this for more than a decade. And the M&V report essentially confirmed the benefits that we believed we were delivering on behalf of Nevada Energy. And they're, in essence, on the demand response side, there are two components to the benefit that we're delivering. There's sort of the traditional piece, which is dispatchable load reduction. And I'll talk about the numbers for that in a second. But the energy efficiency that we deliver also has demand response benefit because it helps reduce, in effect, the baseline load, the base load for each of those participating homes. And what ADM determined on the basis of this exhaustive M&V report was that on the dispatchable load piece, EcoFactor / M-Powered delivered almost 2.4 kW per thermostat and 3.5 kW per home. In Las Vegas, there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.4, 1.5 thermostats per home. And the energy efficiency piece of what we do was delivering an additional 0.6 kW per home. So the overall benefit was a little over 4 kW per home. Then on the energy efficiency side, the total electricity benefit in reductions in air conditioning cycling time was, I believe, 685 kilowatt hours over the course of the year, which was close to 100 kilowatts per month, kilowatt hours per month during the summer months. Excuse me. In addition, they found that we saved 18 therms during the winter. There is actually heating runtime in Las Vegas in the winter, which, when you do the conversion, is an equivalent of over 1,100 kilowatt hours per home per year in energy efficiency savings. The report also concluded that the TRC ratio for what EcoFactor delivered was around 1.33. We've been told that NVE expects that number to be considerably higher for 2014 for reasons I'll explain in a moment. The program at this point is north of 88 megawatts in installed capacity. NVE continues to enroll customers pretty much every day, and we expect to go well north of 100 megawatts for the summer of 2015. And then also extremely important is that Nevada Energy's customer surveys have proven that consumers actually like the program. The customer satisfaction is extremely high, and as I mentioned earlier, that's despite the fact that we ran 28 DR events in 2013. And again, a stretch of 8 days in a row between late June and early July of that summer. And yet, the manual overrides, which the EcoFactor service is able to quantify, were significantly lower than any of the other programs in which they were able to get that data. So EcoFactor essentially delivered on each of those promises. The total energy efficiency savings on HVAC was around 11%. The demand response results were higher than NVE had seen in any of its other residential demand response programs, and to our knowledge were higher than any other utility has seen. And customer satisfaction was indeed very high. The program, one of the advantages of the approach that EcoFactor has taken, the big data approach to all this, is that the program is very extensible, and we're able to add features, add benefits, add capabilities that weren't there in the beginning. And so one of the things that we did for Nevada Energy this summer that we didn't do the first summer was prove that we could deliver 10-minute spinning reserve using all of these same assets. Another benefit that came in 2014 was complete integration into Nevada Energy's DRMS system, which comes from UISOL, such that NVE is able to manage optimized trigger DR events completely within the system that they're comfortable with. And then finally, we've piloted with Nevada Energy an HVAC diagnostics capability. Because of all the data that we take in, we're able to recognize in many cases when a problem develops with an HVAC system. We can also generally recognize when, for example, a thermostat has been miswired, such that when Nevada Energy has installers go out and install the system, we're able to detect very quickly if an installer has made an error and help them fix that before it becomes a big customer service problem. And so when you put all of those things together, Nevada Energy is now able to do some very sophisticated demand management service at the grid level. The slide I'm showing now comes from a presentation that somebody at Nevada Energy delivered, I think, earlier this year. And it shows the blue curve is sort of what you would expect the demand profile to be on a hot summer afternoon. And then the red line represents, in theory, how if you had multiple demand response assets that you could deploy at different times, you could flatten out that curve during the peak hours of the day. And because EcoFactor now has the capability to run not just a single demand response event in a given day, but to allow Nevada Energy through its DRMS system to stagger, to run some of its assets at 2 o'clock and other assets at 2:30 and other assets at 3 o'clock and so on. They're actually able to use our assets plus others to flatten out that curve and essentially draw whatever demand curve they want to achieve in a given afternoon, and dispatch the assets in such a way that the demand will respond accordingly. And those are the reasons, among others, why the Empower project is, I believe, one of 2 Project of the Year nominees for Power Grid International. So I think there have been a lot of useful lessons learned out of this experience with Nevada Energy. I think it's clear now that integrated demand-side management, the combination of energy efficiency and demand response, is achievable. It can achieve the goals that utilities are looking for, and it can do so cost effectively. I think it's also clear now that there's real value to utilities in the big data approach to optimizing loads, such as HVAC systems, although I think it will go well beyond that. I think it's also clear here that although there are potential dangers in applying too much automation inside a customer's home, it's also clear that if you do it right, if the intelligent automation focuses at least part of its optimization around making things better for the consumers will like that. And finally, I think there's value in approaching all the changes that are happening within the smart grid in a way that keeps options open and essentially future-proofs the investments that utilities make. And I think by and large, the way to accomplish that is to put most of the intelligence in your system not into the hardware that you install into a consumer's home, which you may need to replace, but to put it into cloud services, which can be revised at will for many years. And that will conclude the presentation, and I appreciate your time.